So we're back with Nathan, who has a new shirt and a new bandana, and we're talking about cybersecurity. And we did a really nice high level overview of like what we should be thinking about when we care about security. And we talked a bit about how in another video about how to handle passwords and access and the systems we're using. And Nathan, I got a special case for you now. I'm hoping you can help me with. And this honestly, when I think about the teams that I have, sometimes keeps me up at night because we have people who even in with technology startups, not everyone is in the world of technology, and people are well-meaning enough. So last year, I got a call from my company's IT help desk. My company does not have an IT help desk. Are
Yep.
you familiar with this scenario?
Yep. Yeah. Um, yeah. The classic phone-based phishing uh, attempts, right? Or campaigns at the end of the day. Um,
So what's happening there? I mean, these people are not representatives of my company at any level. It's fraudulent. I just want to be explicit. It's fraudulent. What are they doing? What do they want?
yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, it, they're trying to get you to give them access, the access that you have been granted, right? So that could be W-2 forms, that could be access to your device so that they can do things on your device, installed malware, backdoors, whatever. That could be a whole host of things. They're trying to trick you. They're using social engineering to trick you into giving you the access that you've been granted into your ecosystem or whatever.
And let me ask you another question. Who do we have an idea of who their victims are, who they're targeting, who they really want to talk to?
Yeah, that's a great question. Anyone that has power and control over systems
Mhm.
within a company, within a family unit, right? That could be, trying to get bank information. That could be trying to get um, access to legal documents. That could be trying to get access to restricted data center data. Um,
Mhm.
and so they're that's it could be you, right? It could be some random person in marketing or HR, right? that
Yeah.
that doesn't know better.
Yeah,
um
and I'll even piggyback and say I'm thinking about the professionals who have access to the people who have access. Even so, my director of operations might catch on to this, but my his executive assistant, my office manager, actually, like you said, my marketing person. There are definitely people in my company who are really wanting to help the IT help desk.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So usually in this situation, they're asking you to give them something, right? So one of the classic examples was there's this whole big campaign around like Microsoft support is reaching out to blah blah blah, and then to be like,
Mhm.
hey, get in a screen share with us. Well, they're on doing something in the background. They're installing malware onto the device. Another classic example is when people would go after hackers would go after corporate W-2s. They'd say, hey, you need to send all of the W-2s here. This is an emergency. Or why what the CEO is stuck in some country on some trip and needs you to wire $2,000 to help them get whatever. It's like
Mhm.
2,000 is probably low, but still probably enough of a red flag. Um, yeah, and what I briefly have touched on in the past is this concept of like uh, continue like adaptive trust, right? Like, hey, like I don't really trust anything out the gate. Like this idea that like the corporate term zero trust. Like, hey, let me verify. Let me validate that what's happening here is the right person, that where
Mhm.
this call is coming from, right, is coming from the right place. You know, um, being conscious of emails that come into your inbox, being conscious of the phone numbers that you get on your phone, the phone calls you get on your phone. Um, you know, one example is like area code, right? Like why I don't work. The CEO is not based out of New York City, why would I be getting an inbound call from New York City? That doesn't make any sense, right? So being understanding that humans are naturally trusting. We want to trust people. We want to assume the best. We assume often positive intent from the people that we interact with, and that's taken advantage of by different individuals. And so in this instance specifically, it sounds like that IT help desk was like, hey, yeah, like I need to get onto your computer to do some things or blah blah blah.
And obviously, this works in part because a lot of companies do have IT help desks. So if I have an IT help desk, but the company's big enough, I don't know who's there. As a receiver, what might I do to what kind of tools do I have at my disposal, or what kind of tools should my company put in place? Should I, as a leader, put in place for my people to use?
Yeah, exactly, right. So the first thing that's always most helpful, is having multiple so let me use this term vaguely, and then I'll dial into some of the actual terms. So authenticating, like how can I authenticate that this interaction is a proper interaction? If you get a phone call, can you email this person in your company? Like, oh, what was your name? How did you spell that? Like, let me understand how to put this all together. Then you can email, right? Look them up on email. If they're not in your corporate directory, then you know that that's not a person. Confirming through Slack, right? So if you have collaboration tools that aren't just based in email, using those is often another form, especially if you get an inbound email. So authenticating in that capacity. And in another sense of authentication, right, is what I had mentioned before in terms of multi-factor authentication. From a corporate standpoint, if one of your employees falls prey to one of these social engineering breaches, they get the password at the same time, then you have this other form of authentication through push on an app or a text message or an email, right? And then you can then flag if you see one of those authentications, like, hey, that is a big red flag, right? If I'm not logging into my database and all of a sudden I get a text message or with a passcode, that's something you really need to be conscious of. Same with email or one of those app pushes. So like understanding ways that you can really verify that the data and the privileges that you're passing on to someone that you don't, there's no little confidence in, that is appropriate, is really crucial. And just having that mindset. There's always going to be cheats and swindlers within humanity, and they're always going to find new ways of getting through this. So all this stuff in corporate cybersecurity and hacking, that's just the new snake oil salesman of the 21st century. And so we just need to be conscious of how those things come together.
Well, it sounds like, just to summarize, one great tool that I'm hearing if I'm a leader is to have some kind of staff directory implemented that I know is kept up to date. And email, because every new employee gets an email, is a great example of that. And perhaps the Slack, every person's put in the Slack to go, there's a directory here, A. And then B, to communicate. Maybe it's part of the onboarding training, for example. There's a policy for if someone's asking you for some kind of credential or some strategy that you don't know in the company, well, look them up, or even but request that they email you the details, that they email you the request officially. And then you have to be able to look at what that email address is.
Exactly. Having that conversation internally, being conscious of some of those best practices, even just making sure your employees know who each other are, right? Especially in this world of remote work, trying to engage with some people in different departments and build those relationships that you might not always have. That way, when a situation like this arises, and it's like, I've talked to Alex on the phone, why does his voice sound like a woman's voice? Like, that doesn't sound right. Like, Alex isn't always just a man's name. Like, this person's trying to impersonate someone and they're using the wrong, so those sorts of things, and where you're being conscious of the ways that you as a business leader can
Mm-hmm.
keep your team moving forward and working together,
Yeah.
and conscious of just best practices and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Is there anything else that you would share about these sorts of fraudulent social engineering attempts?
I mean, they're growing in prevalency right now, just in with
Mm-hmm.
during the era of our pandemic. So everything from banking um, to your gym membership, or your landlord sending you notifications and saying your rent didn't go through, you need to resubmit it. Um, they're popping up everywhere. They're just so prevalent. We're seeing them very heavily in the corporate space. Um, just because of the change in infrastructure there. But just in general, that consciousness, I think, is just really important, just as a life skill. You can say no to people, please. All of my friends, don't be afraid to tell someone that, hey, I can't do this. It's
Yeah.
corporate policy. Don't feel like you have to be the bad guy. Point someone else out to be the bad guy. But being conscious of when you're passing along corporate information is really, it's a big responsibility. And so I think it's those people who aren't in security every day are really the people on the front lines of this. I know how complicated it can be. I know how confusing it can be, and but if you see an email address that doesn't look right, or being conscious of, you know, um, a, the things being off or spellings being off or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
is really uh, the things that help you as an individual keep your company safe. And that's just a big way for you to be conscious of that and protect the organization you support.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. Thanks for that, Nathan.
Yeah, of course. I think that's all on that subject. I'm super interested in social engineering as general. It's one of those things that I think often gets overlooked in cybersecurity,
Mm.
and often comes down to individuals who might not know better. So I think it's an important topic to hit, especially right now in this huge spike of phishing attempts, spear phishing specifically, right, where they use your information, they know who you are, they looked you up on LinkedIn, they tried to find your Facebook profile and use all those things to kind of jolt loose information from you. And so, if something seems strange, always take a second guess, always try to verify, always confirm that it should be an appropriate interaction.
That's really helpful. And Nathan, can you say anything about the sort of I'm trying to walk around the official jargon, but there's something called pen testing or penetration testing, and there's a social engineering element of that. And I wonder if you might be able to talk to that a little bit.
Yeah. Is there anything specific you want me to kind of drill into, just in terms of like um, the tactics used, the things to be conscious of, anything like that, just in terms of what's helpful there to be conscious of?
If I wanted to, as a leader, if I wanted to take a look at how my cybersecurity is going, or if I wanted to be thoughtful about the sort of policies and training I'm putting in place, I have in place or can improve,
Yep.
and I might want to engage somebody to help me with that, what kind of things would I expect from that kind of professional or organization?
Yes. Okay. So this kind of falls into two categories, right? There's bug bounty, which is focused mostly on bugs within software, trying to find vulnerabilities
Mm,
in an application, in some kind of online service. And then there's pen testing, which really takes a more holistic look at your entire corporate infrastructure. A lot of the things that you and I have talked about, Alex, kind of cover some of the basics in pen testing in terms of understanding where your crown jewels are, of your business, and how to protect those things. Once you've identified, generally a pen tester will interview, ask you some of those questions, ask you kind of where you've invested in, blah blah blah, and then they're going to go along the lines that they use all the tools within their toolbox, right? Generally, those are white hat hackers. They have a background in hacking and infiltrating and infrastructure. So they're going to use everything that they have from uh, technical kind of more application layer knowledge to network knowledge to social engineering knowledge. Trying to walk in and, looking official, looking like they should be there in some kind of, maybe it's a maintenance suit, right? And going and be like, hey, I'm here to fix, the toilet or whatever. Can you buzz me in to go fix, the toilet's broken? And to the front desk person, and they're like, oh, I don't know. Be like, oh yeah, I was called by this person. They did all their homework. They looked up on LinkedIn. They're like, oh, so and so called me. They asked me to come in. This is what's going on in that thing. I need to go fix that heat HVAC system, or whatever. And that person lets them in because they know and they've done their research, right? They're like, oh yeah, I know so-and-so in the executive assistant, right? Of course, that would be something. I'm surprised they didn't tell me, whatever. And that person's out inside the corporate infrastructure. And then they maybe go and change and take off the jumpsuit, and they have like a suit on underneath, and they go walk into the place where they might be, or walk into a data center, right? And are able to walk into where they need to be appropriately. And use some of those skills, let alone everything that we mentioned over the phone, over email, trying to get some of that information as well. They really are trying to press your corporation into finding weaknesses that they can exploit. So they're going to go through generally using social engineering as a piece of that, just because as of right now, hopefully in the future, as more people consume some of this stuff, it won't be true. Individuals are often an underinvested place in how you can have corporate protection. But then alongside that, look at everything else from email to network layer intrusions to messing with your application to get inside your network, all those sorts of things as well.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
That's really helpful. Any last things you'd want to say in general about people who are, and remember, we're thinking of technology startups, we're getting everything started. Anything else these people should be thinking about that we haven't covered?
No, thank you for being innovators. What you guys do is really important. I participate in that to some degree. I want to see you be successful. I hope that some of these things don't scare you. I don't like that these, I don't want to invoke fear within people. I want to invoke a sense of like, hey, you're going to be successful. You've got the tools. You just need to be confident in A, what you're doing, and B, if something seems fishy, if it smells fishy, it's probably fishy, right? And so keep doing what you're doing. Don't let any of these things hold you back. Don't let fear of failure or fear of even a breach keep you from, driving and being successful and innovating and whatnot. So thank you for continuing to do this. I hope this information is helpful. If there's anything that you have question-wise, feel free to reach out to me. If there's anything else I can be doing to just continue to hit bigger topics, happy to help in any way. And I'm just excited to share some things that hopefully are pretty relevant.
And Nathan, how can people looking for you find you?
LinkedIn is probably a great place to start. I've spent a lot of time just working on things behind the scenes with different relationships. I don't do Facebook. I don't do Twitter. I don't do Instagram. So yeah, direct message me on LinkedIn is probably the most efficient way. At this moment, I'm happy to engage people in whatever way I can.
Now here's a riddle for you. What does Tesla's founder-president and Groupon's founding CEO have in common? They were both removed from the companies they started. Stay with me for another, minute, and understand this: more than 3 out of 4 founders are ousted from their role before year 5. That's before IPO, before acquisition, before wild adoption. And as a result, you leave potentially millions of dollars on the table for your successor to pick up. But that won't be you, right? Imagine how good it will feel to carry out your vision for your org as a leader for years to come. Are you a founder of a software startup with a live product and a team? If so, can you see yourself learning to grow alongside your company? I've been working with founders and Fortune 100 companies for a decade, and I have a gift for you. It's free. It's a webinar, and it explains why CEOs and other founders are essentially removed from your company and what you need to do to stay. Move now. Click the link in the description to transform from a founder CEO to a growth CEO, to scale your org, keep your money, and have a worldwide impact. The link to the free webinar is in the description, and I'll see you on the other side. I'm so glad you joined us today. If this video was helpful, give it a like. Go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell so that tech and startup videos continue to show up in your feed. I'll see you in the other videos.